Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. Look, the VA is pausing and has paused billions of dollars, and we want to see what's going on here. I'm going to share it with you here now. Before I do that, I want to throw on a very special thank you to Curly Traveler. Curly Traveler, I hope you see this. Thank you so much for that super comment, super chat. I really do appreciate your support so very much. Thank you again, Curly Traveler. All right, let's jump into this. VA pauses billions of dollars, and how is that going to impact veterans is really what we're looking at here. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I truly appreciate it. Every thumbs up and every minute watch really does help to spread the information, and we need to be aware of what's going on and let others know that we are aware of what's going on. And that's how we can do that. If you want to support the channel in other ways, consider being a member. Thank you so much to all you members. I truly appreciate your support so very much. I do my best to get back to you in the comments. All right, so VA pauses billions of dollars in cuts that were proposed essentially by Musk and lawmakers, and veterans decry loss of critical care is the headline here that I found, and I wanted to share it with you just to kind of read through it and get another perspective of what's going on. If you're not aware, there was a bunch, I can't remember how many hundreds of contracts that the VA had that basically got, I don't know what you want to call it, rescinded, canceled, eliminated, and great, you're going to save billions of dollars. That's wonderful. But at what cost? The VA found out very quickly that there were some collateral damage in there, or there was some collateral damage, and they reversed course on some things. So let's see what we find in this article to see if we can learn anything new. All right. The Department of Veterans Affairs has temporarily suspended billions of dollars in planned contract cuts following concerns that the move would hurt critical veterans health services. Lawmakers and veterans service organizations said Wednesday. This is just a couple days ago. I'm sharing it with you now. The pause affects hundreds of VA contracts that Secretary D.O.G.E Collins a day earlier described as simply consulting deals whose cancellation would save $2 billion as the administration works to slash costs across the federal government. Quotation here, no more paying consultants to do things like make PowerPoint slides and write meeting minutes, Collins posted on X Tuesday in a post that was then pushed out by Musk. And look, here's the deal. To D.O.G.E Collins, VA Secretary, I think you have a very big job, and those that I don't envy that position at all, and it's a lot of work that you got ahead of you. My only suggestion at this point to you, D.O.G.E Collins, is inspect what you expect. If you were told PowerPoint slides and meeting minutes and stuff around that world, probably inspect the rest of it to ensure that you're not going to eat a little crow later, because you, my friend, have a balancing act, and you need to make sure that the things you say come to fruition, and that you don't have to backtrack on anything, because your credibility is everything. And now more than ever, you need to make sure that your team that is around you is being 100% upfront with every single aspect, so that you don't have to come back and go, oh, well, I thought that it was all of these things, right? So with that, just a simple suggestion, I guess. Moving on, the Associated Press has obtained the full list of 875 affected contracts, which show the cuts would affect everything from cancer care to the ability to assess toxic exposure. The list underscores how the Trump administration approach to broad spending reductions has immediate and potentially unintended consequences, generating significant concern not just among Democrats but also Republican lawmakers. And yes, I agree, that is probably very true, as all of our congressional members are elected and they want to essentially self-preserve and be elected again. So, I've said it before, the broad sweeping moves aren't necessarily the best to come in, bowl in the china shop approach. You're going to have some brokenware along the way. You need to be a little more methodical, take a little extra time. Time is here. Take the time and make sure that the moves are calculated and appropriate. Moving on. There's a quotation, we will not be eliminating any benefits or services to veterans or VA beneficiaries, and there will be no negative impact to VA healthcare benefits or beneficiaries. We are always going to take care of veterans at VA, period. VA Press Secretary Pete, with a hard to say last name, said in a statement. All right, moving on. One contract that was on the chopping block supports assessing veterans' disability ratings. Those evaluations are one of the most important steps needed for a veteran to qualify to have their medical care covered to receive financial compensation if they were wounded due to their military service. An inaccurate rating can have long-term impact on their access to care and financial support. So which one was that again? Let's see. Assessing veterans' disability ratings. So I'm not quite sure what that would be. Assessing veterans' disability ratings. It makes it sound as though the rating's already in place and somebody is assessing the VA's disability rating. So I'm not quite sure how that one would work. The only other way you could try to read this would be C&P exams. So it would be a proposed disability rating. Assessing a veteran's disability claim would be a more appropriate way to say that. So, I hate when we get little pieces of information and we have to guess. That's the annoying part. Moving on. Another contract is intended to identify and integrate data between the Pentagon, VA, and other agencies to support the promise to address comprehensive toxics, the PACT Act of 2022. The bill passed in 2022 to increase veterans' access to care. Some of the other contracts marked for cancellation also directly affect veterans' care. VA contracts targeted for cuts include cancer care, PTSD outreach, homeless veterans programs. Now, I will say this. Typically in these types of articles, right, let's just use easy numbers. There's 100 contracts that are cut. And the secretary says that, these 100 contracts are all for these, dumb things that we don't really need to be spending money on. PowerPoint slide presentations, coaching, training, self-improvement coaching type stuff, and writing meeting minutes. Okay, well, then we find out that there's 5 contracts of the 100 that were not, and they fell through the cracks. And that's what we're looking at here. I think it's a smaller number, obviously, a much smaller number of contracts that have a negative impact on veterans. Doesn't mean it's not important, very important. And what it points out is that you must be methodical with this. This is big deal stuff, although there's some stupid spending, I'm sure, right? Don't get confused and think that it's all stupid spending. Make sure that you, again, inspect what you expect. Don't take anybody's word for it, especially I would sit there and go, I wouldn't read through every contract, but this contract's for this. Okay, now I have a question. Or, okay, that makes sense. I get it. Next one, and just knock them out, right? This is big, sweeping moves, and they need to be handled appropriately. So there is a long list. Now, it says that this publication obtained and has reproduced the hundreds of contracts identified for termination at the Department of Veterans Affairs as part of the administration's cost cutting. Many were labeled as essential elements of providing care to veterans. The cuts have been temporarily paused again. So I'm not going to read through each one of these. I'll try to put a link in there so you can jump into it. So let's wrap this up. At a joint House and Senate hearing Wednesday with veteran service organizations, Connecticut Democrat Blumenthal submitted a partial list of the affected contracts his office has received and submitted it for the congressional record. If carried out, these cuts will harm veterans and taxpayers for years to come. In an internal VA email sent Tuesday, And seen by the publication, a VA contracting official said DOGE targeted contracts broadly, categorized as consulting, but they included ones that, if terminated, would halt chemotherapy and imaging services. Contracts to calibrate radiation detection equipment to support cancer care and veteran cemetery management, among others, were also targeted. Another would directly affect the ability to assess toxic exposure because it supports more than 24,000 research requests to look through National Archives and Records Administration and other government sources to validate services and toxic exposure events. Former VA Secretary David Shulkin, who served in the Trump administration in his first term, said that while the agency has gotten larger, right, we all know that it's gotten larger, and there are likely savings to be found, the VA grew in part to meet the large expansion of veterans enrolling to get care under the PACT Act. More than 740,000 veterans signed up for coverage after the law passed. What they're talking about here, I believe, is the healthcare administration side. They opened the doors for VA healthcare. It used to be a much harder doorway to get into, and most folks that had VA healthcare got it by means of a service-connected disability that opened the door to VA healthcare. This PACT Act opened up the door to veterans without having to have that metric in place. All right. Moving on here, I do think slowing down and pausing to see what the consequences are, even if they are unintended consequences, is important to do, Shulkin told the Associated Press. Veteran service organizations called for immediate transparency on what contracts were affected, of course. And moving on, another quotation, with funding suddenly stripped from contractors processing claims, conducting medical screenings, and expanding outreach, there are growing concerns veterans will face delays, denials, and disruptions in accessing critical services, said Rosie Torres, executive director of Burn Pits 360. The group advocates for veterans who face life-altering respiratory illness and cancers due to toxic exposure to dangerous air particle matter generated from massive trash burning fires at overseas bases. And so here we are. Now, with that concludes this story. Just wanted to let you know that essentially what is happening here is umbrella, mass number of contracts, all under the same kind of category, and massive move to cancel them with the realization of, oh, not all of them are actually consulting. There's actually some things that are, not really considered consulting and that are actually important aspects to keep the VA medical centers and their equipment running that would absolutely impact veterans. So maybe we should back off that. So we are seeing some pushback from the VA and some reversals, which is good. And I just wanted to share this with you. We'll keep an eye on it and keep up on pushing out information for you. Thanks so much for watching. Truly appreciate every single one of you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.